Logan leaned on the server rack like it was his dorm room futon and cracked open a Red Bull. He took a slow sip, smirked at me, and said, "You should head home, man. I have got it from here." I did not move. He said it again, waving that blue and silver can like he had built the entire infrastructure himself. "Seriously, you have been here all day. Go chill, right?" Like I was just loitering in the hallway. Like I had not spent the last 10 years keeping this whole system breathing. "My name is Thomas Vance. I am 54 years old. I live in Atlanta, Georgia. And up until last month, I was the guy Gerald Abbott, our chief technology officer, called at 4 in the morning when the back end caught fire. Now I am just a senior systems specialist, which is a long and expensive way of saying I am the janitor of their digital mess." Logan, he is 33, came from some fintech startup in Austin and just got promoted to lead engineer. After barely 8 months here, I watched Gerald walk him into the boardroom 2 days ago, holding a thumb drive that had my server architecture diagram on it, labeled and color-coded by me. He pointed to it like it was his own grand design. Logan nodded along like it was his vision. That is when it hit me. They were not promoting Logan because he was brilliant. They were promoting him because he looked the part. He talks fast, wears the right sneakers, and throws around phrases like cloud agnostic and zero trust pipeline like he invented the internet. I stayed quiet. Logan swaggered off to the incident review meeting with Gerald and the rest of the suits. Meanwhile, I kept typing because someone still had to fix the legacy database that nobody else understood. System uptime was bleeding out, and they were too busy patting each other on the back to notice. The error log was a mess of corrupted pointers and outdated dependencies. I traced the fault line in 5 minutes flat, deployed a patch, and left a one-line comment in the notes. "Hot fix. Maybe do not ignore the instructions next time." Nobody would catch it unless they were actually reading the repository history, which, let us be real, nobody was. I walked past the glass conference room as Logan held up my diagram and said something about streamlined redundancy failover. Gerald nodded like a proud father. The man had not written code in over 15 years, but now he was tossing around technical jargon he probably searched on the web that morning. I did not wait for them to finish. I just grabbed my bag and left. But not before taking the cold energy drink Logan had left on my desk. Still cold. Too bad he never earned it. The next morning, I was halfway through my coffee when Gerald popped his head into the bullpen like a middle school principal doing rounds. "Thomas," he said, way too cheerful. "Have you got a few minutes? Just a quick check-in." He motioned toward the glass conference room we called the fishbowl. Nothing about that room was quick or casual. It was where people went in with a badge and came out without one. I followed him in, sat across from him, and he did that thing where he smiled before speaking, like what he was about to say should feel like a compliment. He started folding his hands like he was pitching a seminar. "You have done really solid work over the years, Thomas. Seriously. Rock steady." I did not respond, just let him talk. "But," he said, drawing it out like it hurt, "I think you have kind of peaked here, which is fine. It happens. Not everyone needs to keep climbing." There it was. Gerald leaned back in his chair like he expected applause for phrasing it gently. "We are restructuring a bit, making space for digital natives and new perspectives. You have got a ton of experience, and I think the best way forward is for you to help transition some of that tribal knowledge over to the newer team." He used air quotes around tribal knowledge. I kept my eyes on him and did not say a word. Right on cue, Logan walked by the fishbowl slow enough to make sure I saw him. He winked like this was a sitcom and he had just nailed the punchline. Gerald kept talking. "No change to your title for now," he said, like he was doing me a massive favor. "But let us use the next few weeks to hand off what you can. You have been a great mentor, and I know the team will really appreciate your support." No mention of severance, no mention of offboarding, just a vague suggestion that I go quietly and help the guy who had just taken my job. I nodded once, got up, and did not shake his hand. I walked straight to my desk and opened my terminal. Logan was parked in my chair, spinning side to side, eating the trail mix I kept in the drawer, with his feet up on the desk like he had lived there for years. "Yo," he said, his mouth half full. "You know how domain name system actually works under the hood?" I stared at him. He grinned. I walked away without a word. I went home that night and poured 3 fingers of bourbon into a glass. Did not even bother with ice. I sat at the kitchen table, stared at the wall for a full minute, and then opened my personal laptop. I clicked into a folder I had not touched since last year. I called it the Ark because I knew the flood was coming, and I did not plan on drowning with the rest of them. The next morning, I watched it happen. A soft chime followed by a ripple of heads turning toward their screens. I looked around and everybody's faces locked up as they read something at the same time. Then I heard someone whisper, "Oh, damn, company reorg email." The subject line was exciting changes for engineering and infrastructure. I did not get it. I opened my inbox. Nothing. I checked the internal communication tool. Nothing. I stood there and watched people read about my own erasure. 10 minutes later, the project dashboard started updating. My name disappeared from 4 of them, then 5, then all of them. Tasks were reassigned, ownership fields went blank, and the infrastructure monitoring board, which I had built from scratch, now showed to be determined where my name used to be. I walked over to the operations desk and asked about a ticket I had opened last week. The developer blinked at me like I was a stranger. "Oh, I think Logan is handling that now," he said. Logan, who still did not understand how a domain name system worked, was now handling security flags on the production pipeline. I went to my manager's office. The door was closed. I knocked once. No answer. I knocked again. Nothing. I went to human resources, and the woman at the desk gave me a sympathetic, empty smile. "Oh, sorry, the person you need to talk to is out today." Everyone was suddenly out, busy, or not sure what the plan was. Back at my desk, Logan had apparently made himself at home. My whiteboard was wiped clean, and my notes were in the trash. He had moved the monitor so it faced away from the aisle. I guess he did not want people seeing how often he was searching for basic coding syntax. "You cool if I switch this to dark mode?" he asked, not even waiting for a reply as he typed. I did not answer. I just sat down in the chair across from him and stared. He tapped away, completely oblivious. "Also, real quick, what is that command you use to pull legacy logs from the cache server? The one with the slow drive?" I did not move. He looked up. "Is it in the documentation?" I stood, walked over, and pulled my old paper runbook from the shelf. I dropped it on the desk beside him. "You will need this," I said. Then I reached under the desk, grabbed the backup drive. I kept taped under the drawer, dropped it in my pocket, and walked out without another word. Let them try to find the system mapping now. I sat at my kitchen table that evening, going through the ARC folder. The first thing I pulled was an email from 2 months ago. Gerald had forwarded my database patch notes to the executive team, adding a note saying he had personally pushed the fix that morning to stop the application programming interface drops. He had not touched a command line since the launch of the original iPhone, but he was claiming credit. I dumped it into the folder. Next were the Slack threads. It took me less than an hour to find 3 different conversations where Logan straight up admitted he did not know how containers worked. One message said, "Not going to lie, I still do not get why we need reverse proxies, laugh out loud." That one made me laugh, but it was a harsh sound. I saved screenshots, full context, and timestamps. Then I went into the server logs. There were dozens of entries, hundreds actually, all of them with my user tag showing patches, fixes, and deployments. From middle of the night rebuilds to hot fixes, I pushed while sitting in traffic. Logan's name was nowhere to be found. I kept pulling receipts until midnight. Then I opened my physical file cabinet and found the document I actually wanted, the original employment contract. It was 4 pages of boilerplate text, but there it was. Clause 12. Termination of employment must be documented in writing within 96 hours, or all severance terms default to a full payout of a year of salary. I checked the calendar. It was day 7 since my access had been cut. No email, no letter, no formal meeting, and no explanation. I had just been ghosted. They thought making me feel fired was the same thing as doing it legally. It was not. It was a massive mistake. The kind that only happens when leadership is arrogant and lazy at the same time. I shut the contract and went to bed. By morning, I was back at my desk like nothing had changed. Logan was already there, chewing the cap off a pen and staring at his screen like it had insulted him. "Hey, real quick," he said, not even looking up. "When a server goes into degraded mode, how do you know if it is hardware or just a service hang?" I answered him, because I was still technically employed, still getting paid, and still bound to support the system. But I also opened a blank document on my own computer and titled it Project Zephyr. It was just a name, meaning nothing yet, but it felt like something new and clean. Every time Logan asked a question, I answered, but I also logged it. I noted the time, the date, what he did not know, and what I had to explain. I documented everything. I updated the ARC folder every single night. Day 8 rolled around and the silence in the office got louder. No paperwork, no meetings. Just Logan asking if domain name systems still mattered when using cloud hosting. Around 2 that afternoon, my phone buzzed. It was an unknown number, I answered, and it was Human Resources. "Hi, Thomas," the voice said, sweet and brittle. "Sorry for the delay. It looks like there has just been a clerical mix-up with your offboarding documents. We will get that sorted shortly." I let her talk. She threw in words like oversight, appreciation, and transition support, all wrapped in that fake warmth Human Resources departments keep in a drawer for difficult days. When she finally stopped to breathe, I asked one simple thing. "So, just to confirm, you are saying I am terminated?" A long pause followed. "Oh, I would not use that word yet," she said. "Yet," I repeated. "Right. We will have something in writing soon." I hung up before she could soften it with another thank you. That was when I called Warren Finch. A friend had mentioned him as a lawyer in Durham who handles messy corporate exits. His office was not in some flashy glass skyscraper downtown. It was in a converted brick tobacco warehouse with creaky pine floors and stacks of folders that looked like they had been there since the 1970s. Warren himself looked like he belonged there. He had graying hair, wore a slightly rumpled tweed jacket, and spoke in a slow, gravelly drawl that instantly lowered my blood pressure. He did not get excited, and he did not make grand promises. "Send me everything," Warren said. "Contract, logs, emails, screenshots. Do not edit or format it. Just dump it." I did. Within an hour, I had sent him dozens of attachments containing every lie, every stolen credit, and every timestamp. 2 hours later, he called me back. "All right, Thomas," Warren said. "Here is the situation. You remember Clause 12, the 96-hour written notice requirement?" "Yeah," I said. "Well, they already blew past that. But there is something even better. Georgia recently passed a new employment statute. If a severance package is not delivered in writing within 10 calendar days of termination, any non-compete agreement tied to that employment becomes completely void." I sat back, letting that sink in. "Are you serious?" "Dead serious," Warren replied. "And by my count, they are on day 10 today, meaning tomorrow is day 11. Here is what you are going to do. Do not reach out to them. Do not mention this law. Do not even breathe about it. Let them come to you when they finally send that package, because they will. The moment you get it, forward it to me. Then we file a notice of non-compliance and void their non-compete claim." "What happens then?" I asked. He chuckled. "Then you are free, Thomas. No leash, no muzzle. You can build whatever you want." That hit me harder than I expected. For the first time in weeks, I felt like I could breathe. So I waited. Day 10 came and went. Logan was still hovering, asking questions he could have easily searched online, acting like we were part of a team. He was struggling with basic IP routing tables and spent half his day looking at Stack Overflow, but he still walked around like he owned the place. Gerald did not look at me once in the hallway. He would look at the floor or his phone whenever we crossed paths, completely unable to make eye contact. I kept my head down, finished the tasks they left for me, and watched the clock. By day 11, I stopped pretending to care. At 4:42 in the afternoon, my phone buzzed. It was an email from Human Resources. The subject line was severance and transition materials. I opened it. 6 attachments, a bunch of standard legal documents, and one fake friendly note wishing me the best. They thought they had checked a box. I forwarded the entire email to Warren Finch, with 2 words in the subject line, "Too late." Then I shut my laptop and smiled for the first time all week. They had no idea they had just handed me the key to my own freedom. 4 weeks later, I came home to find a thick envelope sitting crooked in my mailbox. It had the Apex Point Systems letterhead across the top, with urgent stamped on it like a threat. I did not open it right away. I dropped it on the kitchen counter, poured a cup of coffee, and stared at it. When I finally tore it open, I found a cease and desist letter. It was a formal accusation of breach of non-compete and unauthorized use of proprietary assets related to Project Zephyr. I actually laughed. The letter was filled with bold text and scary-sounding legal threats, clearly designed to make a regular employee panic and sign away their rights. But they did not know that Project Zephyr was not theirs. Not a single line of code sat on company hardware. I had built it at my dining room table, mostly after midnight, using my own personal machine while they were busy erasing my name. I called Warren. He picked up on the second ring. "Morning, Thomas, they are coming for you?" "I got the letter," I said. "I saw it," Warren replied. "They sent me a copy. Relax. They are bluffing. Typical corporate overreach. They want you scared enough to sign something foolish." I leaned against the counter. "They are accusing me of stealing work I built from scratch. It is garbage." Warren sounded almost bored. "Then we will treat it like garbage. Give me 72 hours. 72 hours turned into 60, and when Warren's reply went out, it was a masterpiece. It was 3 pages of cold surgical precision. He cited the Georgia labor statute, line by line, attached timestamps of my personal commits, and included screenshots of system logs proving I had never logged into company networks from my machines after my access was cut. He ended the letter with a clean, devastating paragraph stating that any attempt to enforce a non-compete was void due to Apex Point Systems violating the 10-day severance delivery clause. He copied the entire board of directors. For 2 days, there was complete silence, no calls, no follow-up letters, just quiet. That was when the cracks started showing at Apex Point. A former colleague sent me a screenshot of an internal message. Executives were whispering about containment and investor optics. Logan had apparently botched a deployment so badly that the production database was down for 72 hours. And they lost 3 major clients because of it. Logan had tried to run a migration script without backing up the active tables, a rookie mistake that any junior engineer would have avoided. When the database crashed, he panicked and tried to restore from an outdated backup, making the data corruption even worse. He had tried to blame my legacy code, but the repository logs clearly showed my code had not been touched in weeks, and I was already locked out of the system. Investors wanted answers, and the board wanted someone to blame. Project Zephyr, meanwhile, was humming along. A venture group I had shown a prototype to months ago, Meridian Ventures, emailed me out of nowhere. "We saw your updated prototype," the message read. "Let us talk." We had a conference call the next morning. There were 5 partners on the line, and they were not interested in corporate buzzwords. They asked hard questions about system latency, database scalability, and our migration pipeline. I answered them clearly and directly, drawing on my 10 years of hands-on experience. They were so impressed that they offered us seed funding of $750,000 on our very first call. Word must have reached Apex Point quickly, because the next morning another thick envelope arrived. Gerald had filed an official lawsuit claiming breach of contract and misappropriation of trade secrets. He was betting that legal pressure would break me and force me to hand over Project Zephyr's intellectual property. I read the lawsuit twice and called Warren. "He has lost his mind," I said. "No," Warren replied. "He is desperate. That is different. Desperate men make mistakes. We will file our response within the week. No apologies, no fear. Just a request for full discovery. We want every log, every email, every Slack thread, and every executive memo from the past 6 months. I want the truth on paper." Warren wanted them cornered. He said they thought this was a game of defense, but it was actually a trap. Once the severance issue cleared and the non-compete was voided, I started building Project Zephyr for real. While the legal gears turned, I went back to work. Real work. 2 developers I used to manage at Apex Point, Oscar and Derek, reached out quietly on my personal email. They were tired of the constant fire drills under Logan's management and the toxic atmosphere Gerald had created. They did not even ask about the pay or equity. They just wanted to build a clean system that actually worked for once. We held late-night meetings over video calls, sharing screens, reviewing code, and planning database schemas. It felt like the early days of engineering again, where the focus was entirely on solving problems rather than playing corporate politics. Oscar took charge of the front-end design, making sure the user interface was smooth and responsive, while Derek helped me optimize our API endpoints. Every night, I coded until my hands cramped. Every morning, I woke up to another short email from Warren. Apex Point was missing documents, fumbling their responses, and claiming things that did not match their own internal timestamps. By week 3, their lawyers were begging for delays, claiming they needed more time to gather records. Warren denied every single request, pressing them harder with court deadlines. By week 4, I knew we had won. They thought firing me would erase me. Instead, they had documented every lie, every delay, and every arrogant mistake in black and white. I did not need revenge. I just needed patience, and Gerald was the one who blinked first. Deposition preparation with Warren felt like boot camp. He had a calm, clipped rhythm to his questions, making sure I was ready. We sat in his office for hours while he grilled me. "Do not get emotional," he warned me. "Do not interrupt. Let them think they are in control, and then let them talk themselves into a corner." He would play the role of their lead attorney, throwing aggressive, leading questions at me, trying to make me lose my temper or say too much. "Answer only what is asked, Thomas," he would remind me after I gave a long explanation. "If they ask if you wrote the code, say yes. Do not explain where or when unless they ask. Let them dig their own grave." We sat in his office surrounded by towers of paper, binders, and email printouts. The man was completely unflappable. He walked me through their likely angles, from intellectual property theft to non-disclosure violations. Every single claim was already dead in the water, but he wanted me sharp. "They are going to test your patience," he said, tapping the desk. "Stay calm, answer what is asked, and nothing more. We want them comfortable before we pull the plug." The day of the deposition, I wore the same gray suit I had used for job interviews a decade ago. It did not fit right in the shoulders anymore, but that did not matter. I was not there to impress anyone. Apex Point Systems had 5 people on their side of the table. 3 lawyers, 1 human resources representative, and Gerald Abbott himself. Gerald walked in like he still owned the building, wearing that fake boardroom smile, though his eyes looked tired. We started slowly with basic questions about employment dates, project scope, and system access. Warren did not even look at me. He let their lawyers do their little dance, all polite smiles and vague phrasing. Then the lead attorney flipped through his notes. "Mr. Vance, do you acknowledge that any software or prototypes created during your employment would fall under Apex Point's proprietary domain?" "Sure," I replied, "during my employment. But Project Zephyr started after my termination." The lawyer smirked. "That is debatable." Warren leaned forward, finally speaking. "Would you like to verify the termination date, counselor?" The attorney shuffled his papers. "We have internal notes." "Internal notes are not legal documents," Warren cut in, his voice calm but sharp. "You issued the severance package on day 11. That is after the 10-day limit set by statute." Gerald's jaw tightened. Warren did not even look at him. He reached into the binder beside him and slid a document across the table. Exhibit 22. An email thread from Apex Point's Human Resources Department, dated the 5th day after termination. Note the phrasing, "holding severance paperwork until Gerald confirms timing." Gerald shifted in his chair. Warren flipped another page. "Exhibit 24, he said, his tone completely flat. "Internal Slack messages, timestamped the same morning, from Gerald to Human Resources. It says, 'Hold the severance packet just in case we need leverage.'" A heavy silence fell over the room. The opposing attorney blinked. "Excuse me, where did you obtain this?" "Your office produced it during discovery," Warren said simply. He leaned back and crossed his legs, looking completely relaxed. The Human Resources representative's face turned pale. Gerald was frozen, his fingers locked tightly around his pen. Warren let the silence stretch for several seconds. Then he spoke almost gently. "For the record, this directly violates Georgia Labor Statute Section 95-25.7. By delaying payment, Apex Point Systems invalidated all restrictive covenants, including the non-compete." That document hit the table like a bomb. The opposing lawyers exchanged quick looks and began whispering urgently. Then the lead attorney stood up and requested a 30-minute break. They all rushed out of the room, leaving Gerald for last. He did not even look at me. His face had gone slack, and his eyes darted around like he was finally realizing the depth of his mistake. Warren stayed seated. He did not smile or gloat. He just checked his watch. "They will be gone a while," he said. "Probably long enough for someone to start screaming." I did not say anything. It was not necessary. For the first time in months, I realized I did not have to fight anymore. They were destroying themselves. When the door opened 30 minutes later, only their lead attorney returned. Gerald and the human resources representative were gone. The lawyer cleared his throat and said, "We would like to propose a dismissal with prejudice." Warren nodded once. "That will do." We packed our papers, walked out to the parking lot, and did not say a word until we reached the cars. Warren stopped, giving me a rare smile. "Told you they would trip over their own timeline." I laughed. "You were right." He started his car. "I usually am." The next morning, I received the official notice. Case dismissed with prejudice. They could never touch me again. And just like that, Apex Point Systems, the company I had kept running for 10 years, collapsed. I was finishing lunch when the first text message arrived, containing a link and 3 celebration emojis. 15 minutes later, another arrived, then 8 more. I clicked the link and saw the headline: Apex Point executive deliberately delayed severance to dodge legal exposure. Leaked emails show. Right below it were the screenshots of the Slack threads. Gerald's name and the entire conversation were laid out word for word. The article did not hold back, calling it a strategic delay with intent to limit liability. The story went viral. Every tech news outlet picked it up. The comment sections were full of former employees sharing their own stories. Then came the investors. Someone leaked internal emails showing the board demanding answers. Gerald's name was dragged through the mud. I checked the company website, and his name was gone. 3 hours later, the site updated to say Gerald Abbott had stepped away to focus on his health. My phone kept buzzing with screenshots of his profile, being edited to former chief technology officer. I did not celebrate or post anything. I just sat on my balcony with a coffee and watched the sunset. At 8:15 in the evening, an email arrived with the subject line: "Next steps." It was from Meridian Ventures. "Thomas, we have been following Project Zephyr's progress closely. Congratulations on the dismissal. That kind of resilience speaks for itself. Let us talk." I stared at the message. The folder I had opened in a panic, the one I called the Ark, had saved me. Now it was time to clean it up. I opened it and deleted every old Slack file and complaint. What was left was clean code, system architecture maps, and product plans. I renamed the folder Zephyr Meridian. This was not about revenge anymore. Revenge required looking backward, and I was already looking forward. Launch day for Project Zephyr did not have any dramatic speeches, just clean code, quiet clicks, and 6 new clients onboarded in 18 hours. No downtime, no drama. I walked into our new office in downtown Atlanta. It had big glass windows and real sunlight. My name was on the door in clean black letters: Thomas Vance, no title underneath. I did not need one. Everyone inside already knew who ran the systems.